My name is Gary Scudder. I teach part-time here. And
travel full-time.
Yeah. I'll be talking about the global modules today. This is looks like a real formal presentation, but it's necessarily not one. I'm mainly interested in questions because we're implementing this in the Core 120 in the spring, so the important thing is that you get a sense of what this entails. It's a process which I think always seems much scarier from the outside than it is from the inside. Both the technology, which is like, oh my God, the technology is simple. It's set up so that I can run it, which means it's idiot level technology, because I don't understand anything. And the pedagogy itself is very clean, very simple. It should be the very definition of value added. So we'll talk about that. I know some of you heard this spiel before, but some of you are new, so I'm going to try to do a little bit of both. Talk a little bit about why we do this and the approach I'm going to take. This is the Global Modules website, which Bob and others were kind enough to set up for me. It's very nice, and I'll show you it in a few minutes. And this is the Global Modules blog. Just by way of background very quickly. We've been doing the Global Modules for about 4 years, but obviously Champlain has been interested in international for longer than that. As you know, this is our famous 7 core competencies, and global appreciation is one of them. And the Global Modules is one of our ways of approaching and this understanding of global appreciation. Richard chaired the committee that came up with the first definition of it, and then he wisely, being a very smart man, dumped it in my lap. I've had it ever since. So obviously this is something which is very important to us and far predates the arrival of the global modules in the curriculum. But it's also something that you see more and more in international and national definitions of a qualified student. This is the AAC&U Essential Outcomes, and they list 4 of them, and this is just one of them: personal and social responsibility. And things like civic knowledge and engagement, intercultural knowledge and competence, ethical reasoning and actions, are all things that we touch on in the global modules. And then finally, this is anchored through active involvement with diverse communities and real-world challenges. Well, this is exactly what we do with the modules. So it's a Champlain thing, but it's increasingly something you see nationally and internationally. I think the difference with us in the global module approach is we're being much more audacious in how we attack this in classic Champlain fashion. It's sort of limited. Here's a nice chart I stumbled across of U.S. study abroad locations. So here you have less than 3% of American students who study abroad, and even that 3%, the vast majority of them are Europe, and really Western Europe. Even someplace like Eastern Europe, the students don't go to.
80% of those are actually the United Kingdom.
Exactly. Thank you. So you have a very small percent, and it's going to exactly one place. And again, if you take someplace like the Middle East, I think the last time I saw less than 0.5% of the students who do study abroad go to the Middle East, and all of them go to Israel or Turkey. So it's a very sort of Eurocentric experience, and not many students do it. So the question then is, you have a desire to internationalize the curriculum, but how do you actually pull it off? So we began this 4 years ago, and it worked remarkably well. We've been slowly expanding it, offering more and more and more, going through different websites, and we've reached where we are today, where it's actually part of the curriculum. Our goals are very simple. Obviously, enrich educational experience, internationalize the curriculum, create greater diversity in class. This is very important for us, obviously, because, geez, we are so white in Vermont. And I know that this is a big deal with Finney, and he wants to change this, but this is going to take a long time, and it's going to be sort of always limited. So if we can use this to create greater diversity, at least in discussion online, I think it helps us. It's very interdisciplinary, because when you're linking up with another class in the global module, you're talking about a particular theme. So I don't have to link up with a history class. I can link up with anything, as long as we share some common theme. So its very definition, it's very interdisciplinary. So you have students coming at the same problem from not only 2 different parts of the world, but sometimes 2 different disciplines, which leads to a very, very rich discussion. My hope is that, in fact, this will help us inspire more study abroad. That if we get the students talking their first year and second year with students from around the world, by the time it's their 3rd year, that whole cultural immersion year, that more of them will be more likely to go overseas. I left this one on the side here, international dialogue, because, I mean, it's what I believe in, that I just think, and I'm just stupid this way, that the more conversation we inspire between students from different parts of the world, the better the world will be. And I don't know whether I'm just naive or I read too much Marcus Aurelius. Capone, calm down. But I just simply think this is better, especially for American students who are sort of bliss-free, ignorant of the rest of the world. So my goals are very small. As I always say overseas, when I'm talking to different universities, I have very small goals. I only want to change the way the world educates its children, which is a classic American response to anything. These are some of the global modules we've either run in the past, or we're in the process of running, or we're setting up for the spring, just to let you know the diversity of approaches we've taken over the years and the diversity of schools we've talked to. Klagenfurt University, we interviewed peace activists for an international wiki. Princess Amaya University, we did terrorism. And what's nice about that is the Jordanian students chose the topic. I didn't, because I did not have enough nerve to ask Jordanian students if they wanted to talk about terrorism. But they essentially kidnapped the class and said, this is the most important thing we talk about on a daily basis, so we want to talk about it. The Princeton University in Canada, Women as the Other, and I'll talk more about this theme in a minute. Alcuin University, we've done Women as the Other, but we're also doing one right now called Real Bad Arabs, which Rob is taking part in. They're just getting ready to start. The Moroccan professor is a little slow showing up, but they've got this great approach where they're going to base the discussion not around a text like we normally do, but around a film, and talk about perceptions of Arabs. The structure, very simple. We link the classes together for 4 weeks. Now you can do longer than that if you want, but we found that 4 weeks is a nice period of time for both reasons that are pedagogical and practical. The practical is that sometimes our semesters don't match up particularly well, especially if we're dealing with universities from the southern hemisphere, where we may only have 6 weeks in common with them. So in a sense, part of this is just practicality. But part of it also is the sense that it's thematic, and we can usually talk about a theme pretty thoroughly in about 4 weeks. So we create a web page. Your students have access to it, their students have access to it, and you spend 4 weeks together. And it's generally this way. Week 1, introductions, you get to know each other. Week 2, some shared common reading and discussion. Or it might be a film, as we're talking about with the film, with the approach Real Bad Arabs. Week 3, group work. We create virtual groups that are, in the case of Rob's class, half Moroccan, half American, and we give them group assignments, which they do online. Week 4, summary and critique. What have we learned not only about the topic, but what have we learned about our conversation with students from around the world? And especially since this is going to be embedded in the concepts of community class, this is an extraordinary fit because this is by definition community building. Now, before I go any further, this is one thing. Whenever I say we link classes together for 4 weeks, faculty every place say, I don't have 4 weeks to give you. Because the first assumption is, I want every moment of 4 weeks. No. Think of it as parallel tracks. You have what's going on in your regular class every day. This is what's assigned, this is what I do day in, day out. Running parallel to that is your online discussion. And you give as much or as little in-class time as you want. So you may spend 5 minutes. You may go, did anybody see Ahmed's posting yesterday? Because this really sets up our discussion for today. Or you may not, but they run parallel. So don't think of me taking up 4 straight weeks of class time. That's not the point of this. Just think of it as a graded assignment that you're approaching a different way. Okay, any questions so far?